All right, in this, I'm going to show some things about Goddard Enterprises today in Barbados. Goddard Enterprises is a, it's a currently functioning business. It's still around. It's publicly traded. So I'm going to go through that. And then right after that, I'm going to let Neville tell the story on how it all started. So listen to the whole thing. All right, so here we have some old pictures of Neville Goddard. Most of these you've seen online. It's very limited what actually exists. Here is his dancing days. They said he looked like Rudolph Valentino. He dressed up a certain way. Neville was a very handsome man, especially as a young man. So what I'm going to focus on here is, here we have Barbados. You can see here, Goddard Enterprises Limited, the Goddard Building, S. Goddard Chartered Accountants, right? These companies are still in business. And here's one, I don't know how old this thing is, but it said revenue was 409 million, 6,000 employees, founded in 1921, right? Goddard Enterprises, publicly traded company based in Barbados and has been operating since 1921. The group operates in catering, manufacturing and services, automotive building supplies and services, and corporate and financial services. This is all what Neville's, I guess, father and brother started. So, I mean, you'll know that he used to refer to his brother Victor, who had a department store and other things, where he loved the smell of the market. You know, he'd get up every day excited because he loved it. So, other thing I wanted to focus on, here's some news articles. This is from February 2022. Goddard's buries a piece of its history. I'm assuming the man on the right here is, based on what this said, he's a member of the Goddard family. I don't know exactly where he fits in, and this man here, I believe, is the current president or CEO of the company. Said here they were burying a time capsule. Apparently they do this every so many years. This was to mark the 100th anniversary. What does it say? Past Chief Executive Officer and Chairman Joseph Goddard said the occasion was necessary, adding that burying a time capsule is really about preserving history and keeping records for those who come later. Also, there was a Colin Goddard present, also grandson of the founder of the company, said the site for the placement of the time capsule was significant for his family since just about 5 years after starting J.N. Goddard and Sons, his grandfather got to purchase the property, which is known as Kensington Estate. They'll open it in 2046. Group Chairman Charles Herbert said, in addition to items, he basically talking about what was left in the time capsule. You can look this up. This is from Barbados Today. And here's another more recent. Here's, I believe, that same gentleman who was assisting on putting the time capsule in. It says here, yeah, Charles Herbert. He's the chairman. Goddard Enterprises passes $1 billion barrier in December 20th of 2023. So this, from when I'm recording this video, this is only a few months old. So Goddard Enterprises is still there. It's a public company. I don't believe any current Goddards are working with the company anymore. It seems to be everybody who's running the company is just, because it's a public company. That's really how public companies run now. It's not a private company. So that's pretty interesting, right? So here we have Joseph Goddard was the father. Victor Goddard was his oldest brother. They had one sister. These are, I believe, all the brothers. Here's Neville on the right. This was first location in Bridgetown where it all started in 1921. So they opened up the original business in Bridgetown. And then, I know, Broad Street, Barbados Ice House. I don't know what that significance of that is. So Neville Goddard, everything he said about his family being very successful, being worth millions. I mean, look at it. Even today, the original company, well, there was the original company, which evolved into a public company. That public company today is doing business over $1 billion. And they're a publicly traded company. I don't know where, I assume Barbados maybe has a stock exchange, or I don't know where they're listed. But the fact is that Goddard Enterprises, it's still there. All of that was the result of imagination. Everything that Neville's talked about his family, the success they got through the means that they devised to create it, all true.
And objectify it on the screen of space. And then the world will call it real. And they may not believe you. It doesn't really matter. If you tell them it came to pass because you simply imagined it. Now, they'll point to the series of events that led up to it. And they will give credit to the bridge of incident across which you walked towards the fulfillment of that state. And they'll point out some physical thing that was the cause. No, the cause is invisible, for the cause is God. And God is invisible to mortal eye. Who knows what you're imagining? No one knows. But you can sit down and imagine, and no one can stop you from doing it. But can you give reality to the imagined state? If you do, yes, a bridge of incident will appear in your world. And you'll walk across some series of events leading up to the fulfillment of the imaginal state. But don't give causation to any physical step that you took towards the fulfillment of it. You imagined yourself having a marvelous business. And then comes the day a building is for sale, and you haven't a nickel towards it. And not a total stranger, but a man comes in and asks you quite in a friendly manner, are you going to buy it? And knowing you don't have a penny, you say to him, as you would a friend to a friend, with what? And then he said, well, I have money. It's only in the bank drawing nothing. You say, but I have no collateral. But he said, I've watched you. You're an honest person. Your family, they're honest. I think they are. Would you like me to buy it for you? I'll get my lawyer to bid for it. If they knew that I'm bidding, that I have money, they'll bid me up. And so I get it at the very lowest price by getting a lawyer who represents more than one client, and they do not know who he represents, and he'll bid for it. Are you willing to take it regardless of the price? And you say, yes. I'll take it. But I have no collateral. All I need is your signature, that you will simply pay 6% on whatever the price is, and then reduce that principal over a period of 10 years. Agreed? Yes. But then sign this, and we'll see if we can buy it. That day, you owned the building. And you didn't have one nickel when you owned the building that day. You only had your signature on a piece of paper. At the end of 10 years, you repaid the man his principal. You reduce it every year, paying him 6% on the remaining principal, and reduce the entire thing at the end of 10 years. That man dies 20 years later and leaves you $150,000 in cash, tax-free, and a couple of homes and many personal belongings. In the meanwhile, you continue in that business, and it multiplies and multiplies. And that year was 1922, 1924. This is now 1968. That building, I'm speaking factually, that building in 1924 is now gone. He paid only $50,000 for it. It was repaid and repaid. A bank 3 years ago bought the property, because the building was rotted, bought the property for $840,000 in cash. and no capital gain. From 50,000 to 840,000. In the meanwhile, the business has expanded into all the other islands, so that today you couldn't buy them out for $15 million. All in imagination. And this goes back to the imagination that preceded this man's offer to buy the building. For the young man seeing this building and entertaining a thought that the present owners deceived his father, and through deception got him out of a partnership, a junior partnership. And he was moved not to get even, but to prove that he really had something within him and could be a success in spite of their deception. And so every day he would see on that marquee not their name, but his own family's name. And he would see it in his mind's eye, because you could not take their name and transliterate it and make it spell this man's family's name. But he saw it. And in his mind's eye he saw that name, which if true would imply the family owned it. He did it every day, twice a day for 2 years. And then came this sudden, out of the nowhere. And the whole thing was made possible, and today they're all over the islands. And they have no partners. They've never taken in one partner, never sold one bit of stock outside of a family ownership. All by imagination. Now, I know what I'm talking about because I am a member of that family. I'm speaking of my own family. This is not hearsay. I know it. My second brother, Victor, was the one in whose imagination this whole thing began to bloom. And he still works all by imagination. He knows what he wants, and then after having decided in himself, that's what I want, and that's good for the business, he then in his mind's eye, he appropriates it. And then let things happen. As told us in Scripture, the vision has its own appointed hour. It ripens, it will flower. If it be long, then wait, for it is sure, and it will not be late. Read that in the book of Habakkuk. Here is the true translation of that passage in Habakkuk. So when you know what you want, remain faithful to that assumption. And the assumption, though at the moment, is denied by your senses and denied by reason, if you persist in it, it will harden into fact. Are we not told that God calls a thing that is not seen as though it were seen, and then the unseen becomes seen? He calls everything from the unseen into the seen in this simple manner. For he is the resurrecting power. So if I assume that I am, I don't have to have evidence to support it. I assume that I am. I am what? Well, I name it. And having given it a name, given it form, given it definition, remaining in it, I resurrect it. And if it takes 1,000 men to aid the birth of that state, 1,000 men will play their parts. And I don't have to go out and look for them, any more than my brother had to go out and look for this man. He would not have known where to start looking for one the day of the sale. As far as he is concerned, he had done it in his mind's eye, and he allowed everything to happen. And he comes right in like a joke. He really thought it was a joke. And he said to this man, "Are you fooling me?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, then wait. Let me call my father." He's at lunch. He called him on the wire. He said, "Daddy, come on up. Leave everything and come." And then he said, "Now you tell my father what you told me." My father's name is Joseph. And my father said, "You really mean it?" He said, "Yes, Joe, I mean it. I'll have him bid today. You put your signature here, and your son Victor put his signature. That's all I need." And that was a lifetime friendship. So when that man died, he didn't owe my brother Victor anything. He so loved the friendship and the feeling of, decency that he had with my brother Victor, he gave him $150,000 in cash. And that was tax-free. And the homes, everything was tax-free. And that building, which he bought for $50,000, was sold 3 years ago to the Bank of Nova Scotia. They tore it down and built a lovely structure, but they paid our family $840,000 for that building. So here was a gain, and there was no capital tax gain. None. That whole thing was simply free. So I know what I'm talking about. All I need from you is the acceptance of it. Will you believe it? Will you believe that with God all things are possible? Will you believe that all things are possible to men? Well, you can prove it in the not distant future. But